Well, look, let's talk about the BBC case and indeed that case at the Supreme Court right now with a fantastic guest. Mara Yamauchi is a former elite athlete. She was a long-distance runner. She's an Olympian. She's also an advisor on the advisory group of Sex Matters, who are part of this Supreme Court case over what is a woman. Mara, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate joining us. Can we talk first of all about this BBC case? Because we had to be really careful. We put the wording out on social media, actually, and how we talked about this, because it's very difficult when you get into small words. But like, the BBC has sparked controversy by naming Barbra Banda a player who plays with women as a female player, but who has nevertheless failed sex eligibility rules in the Africa Cup of Nations and indeed to go and transfer to Real Madrid, but being named as BBC's Women's Footballer of the Year 2024. What is this controversy about?
Well, there's plenty of evidence that Banda is male with a disorder of sex development. There are allegations that Banda refused to lower testosterone. The only people who need to lower testosterone to play in women's sports are males. Refused permission to play in the Africa Cup of Nations, as you said, failed sex tests. All this evidence points to Banda having a male DSD. And these males go through normal male puberty. They have testes, XY chromosomes, male levels of testosterone. It is unfair. And yet, we're all expected to just go along with
play along with. But this is the thing. I mean, we've had various cases. Samaya, we've had Latif, the boxer in the Olympics, controversially winning, punching a woman in the face. Woman literally going, you know what? I don't have a chance getting out of here alive. I'm calling it. And we've had these controversies, and they've come to the fore. And thank goodness they have, because it's happening across sport, across the world. But this is very different from, say, trans women. Well, let's call them what they are: men who identify as trans. Where they say, I'm a man, I've grown up with them as a man, my birth certificate says that, this is what I am, I've gone through male puberty, but I now identify as if I'm a woman, I'm now going to compete with women in sport. And of course, we know, they have an inbuilt male physical and indeed, testosterone advantage that stays with them for life, no matter what they do. That's different, isn't it, from these males who've basically been misidentified at birth, where they are quite clearly, when you look at their chromosomes, their testosterone levels, their body developing in puberty, they quite clearly are male, but at the time of birth, they've been possibly, they're not quite sure, and they've identified them as female, and actually that's wrong. So in a way, I feel, it's not Barbara's fault that Barbara has been raised as a girl and now a woman, but you only have to look at Barbara and seeing the video of Barbara being told she's won this award and all her female players, teammates clapping away and cheering for her, but you can see his physicality. You can see the muscle density, the arms, the shoulders, the breast, the completely flat breast. He's quite clearly a male.
Yeah, as you said, this is not a trans case, but the similarity between DSDs, the issue of DSDs and trans, is that this is bringing male advantage into the female category. The female category exists for the sole purpose of excluding male advantage. Yeah. So it's ludicrous, but we've been over this so many times before. But what for me is most important about this case is the BBC, the public broadcaster, allegedly impartial, independent and truthful. In its charter, it says its duty is to educate, inform, has deliberately misled people by omitting all this key information on all the information they've put out about this award. So anybody reading the stuff the BBC have published
wouldn't know anything about this. Oh, there's a tweet congratulating Barbara, and then there's another tweet giving a whole load of information. Doesn't mention any of this controversy at all.
None of the stuff about elevated levels of testosterone, failing a sex test, none of that was included by the BBC. So if you read it, you would believe that Banda is female. And the voting in the final round was by readers of the BBC website who have been misled by the BBC about the sex of this person. It's a complete sham brought on us by the BBC, which is, as I said, allegedly impartial.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I loved, as always, J.K. Rowling's response to this, who wrote, presumably the BBC decided this was more time efficient than going door to door to spit directly in women's faces. But the thing I find extraordinary is the female team team players clapping away, happily smiling. And we've seen that again and again, haven't we, when males have taken female prizes in sport and they're having to clap away. And then we find out afterwards that actually they're basically told, if you don't smile and play nicely, you know, you're out. You'll be accused of being a bigot. You'll be out of the team. We know there's a lot of pressure on these women. But also people like the Lionesses, you know, England's football, women's football team, you know, why don't they speak out? I implored them a bit earlier on the show. Speak out and say, you're at the top of your game. If you all speak out together. And again, you know, this is not transphobic. It's not anti these men. We're not attacking, you know, Barbra Banda. This is about fairness for women in sport, a level playing field.
Yeah. I think it's fear of being called a transphobe, a bigot, a Nazi, losing income, losing contracts. But, you know, if you have a man on your team in a women's football competition, you know, maybe you are going to keep quiet. But, you know,
because you do better. When you win everything.
Sooner or later, there's going to be a man on the opposing team. So, you know, myself, Sharon Davis, Martina Navratilova, other older retired athletes, we've all been speaking up. Some current, younger, still competing athletes have spoken up, but not many.
No,
Currently
absolutely.
competing athletes of both sexes and more retired male athletes need to speak up on this now, because women's sport is going to be dead in a few years.
Well, this is it. We've only just seen women's sport becoming a real thing, where there is money and there's adulation, where, you know the number of people who watch, say, you know, women's Euros finals and World Cup finals, and you know, the quality of the sport, and it's only got good quality because women are now able to do it full time because there's money in it. But as soon as there's money in it, and a load of men can say, oh, I think I'll go and have a go at that. I'm not good enough for the men's team, but I'm definitely good enough for the women's team. We are going to see in 10 years' time, there will be no women in sport because it'll all be men claiming they're women.
Exactly right. Now there's money in women's sport. All the men come along and decide they want to join in. You know, we've been here before. The 3 medalists in the Rio 800 metres for women were male. I mean, sports officials everywhere should have looked at that and said, this is wrong. We must protect women's sport. But instead what we have is everybody going, oh, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. It's, you know, now we have it in boxing. There's several of them in football.
Yeah.
You know, if sports officials don't get a grip on this, women's sport is going to be dead. And it's all about money. These, you know, Banda will be making millions. Khalif has been on the cover of Vogue making millions. You know, Semenya has retired having made millions. All that money should have gone to female athletes, and instead it's gone to males.
Yeah, and of course, and Sharon Davies has made this point brilliantly over the years. And again, she had a massive cost, even as a retired athlete, lost loads of work. Even the charity work she was doing that was unpaid, she lost that. You know, oh, horrible bigot. You know, and yet back a wonderful, wonderful ambassador for women's sport. And for her, it was back. You know, she had to compete against testosterone-injected female athletes from Eastern Europe, and she felt that was so unfair. You couldn't win a gold against these people, and that's the thing. It's not just the person not winning gold. It's the woman who's not winning silver or not winning bronze, and the woman who doesn't get on the podium at all, the woman who doesn't get on the team at all, the woman who doesn't get the chance to go and train with the team and possibly get on it because she's not good enough because there are men in those roles. The knock-on effect of this impacts many, many thousands of women and their chances.
I totally sympathise with Sharon, and I am still owed money from the 2010 London Marathon because of doping. I haven't lost what Sharon lost, but I know what it's unfair to be robbed by cheats. But, you know, women's sport is going to be dead soon unless people speak up. Yeah. And the BBC has a great responsibility in having caused millions of people to misunderstand this issue. Yep. And I strongly urge people to go and look up hecheated.org, the website. This lists all the money and medals, trophies, team places stolen by males from female athletes. Yeah. It's going on in the UK constantly. In my own sport, athletics.
And people constantly say, oh, God, what's the issue? Why are you so upset about it? It's only a couple of people. It really isn't. Can I also just get you finally on this quite absurd case in lots of ways being brought in the Supreme Court, the fact this had to be brought, looking at what the legal definition of a woman is and whether if you're legally changing from male to female, which you're not, of course, officially you might be, whether that piece of paper in any way impacts, basically sex discrimination laws, equality laws, which are about your biological reality, not a piece of paper that you can wave about.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the highest court in the land is addressing the question, what is a woman, just shows us the level of insanity the world has reached.
Yep.
Everybody knows what a woman is. Small children know what a woman is. The question is, do women and girls have rights to fairness, dignity, privacy, safety, etc.? That's what the Supreme Court is being asked to address. And I commend For Women Scotland for bringing this case, and Sex Matters and the several lesbian organisations fighting for women's rights. And I would have urged your listeners to consider, why isn't the Supreme Court addressing the question, what is a man? Yes. This shows you precisely what the problem is. It is men invading women's spaces. The opposite never happens. So
Absolutely.
It's an extremely misogynistic movement.
Absolutely. I totally nailed it. Mara, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Mara Yamauchi is a former elite athlete, Olympian no less, as a long-distance runner and an advisory group member of Sex Matters who were involved in that case. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, just speaking just so much sense. Benedict Spence, I think she absolutely nailed it there with the point is, we're never asking what is a man. We're never worrying about what's happening with so-called trans women, trans men, i.e. women who identify as if they're men, not worrying about them going into, male-only spaces and male-only prisons. They don't do that, funnily enough. We're not worried about that. Why not?
Because there isn't a physical advantage there, of course. I tell you what, though,
isn't that amazing?
The more that we have this, the more that we have this conversation, I just think, actually, you know what? I'm okay with this, though. I'm okay with this because I'm going to become an Olympian. I've decided I'm going to become women's Olympic luge champion because clearly, all it takes is me to rock up, moustache or not. In fact, this is probably more likely to make me accepted and say, well, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make my fortune, make my name. Yep. I'm going to finally get out from under your shadow. In fact, I'm going to challenge you. Why don't you go up against me? And we're going to try out
my
for the
only Olympic
luge
sport
team.
is loading the dishwasher.
And you're very good at it. But I still reckon I'm better than you. Because I'm a man.
I'll challenge you. Hey, you know what? If I was the leader of the Lib Dems, we could do a TikTok video about a challenging...
Should we play FIFA? That would be entertaining. I don't know what you think.
I have no idea.
You'd end up hitting me over the head with a controller through frustration.
I would do that anyway. That'd be the first moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're talking about EVs. We're talking about the madness. Where's BBC Verify when it comes to this? There's a man, effectively, a man. Let's be honest, I'm not having a go at Barbra Banda. I'm really sorry this happened to you. I'm really sorry you were misidentified at birth, but you're a man. You've got no business playing in women's sport. You failed sex eligibility test. People say, oh, failed a testosterone test. Yeah, women can't have that level of testosterone. It's impossible for them to have it because they're not men.